There's research I love to tell folks about, but it's research that was done where they were studying a bunch of couples who were to varying degrees striving to not be governed by traditional gender roles. Mm-hmm. They were saying, we're not going to assume that, you know, it's always the man that does the yard work and always the woman that does the feminine stuff. You know,
right.
It was really interesting what they found, I thought, because they found that, you know, and this is all, you know, aggregate stuff, mm-hmm. so different couples reacted different ways. But what they found was, in general, the couples that were rigidly in gender roles that they just couldn't get out of, mm-hmm. a lot of the women were just pissed off. I mean, it was, they weren't happy, they felt oppressed. I mean, it could be really difficult. Mm-hmm. Not all, because there were some couples that's what they wanted to do. But a lot of couples were not happy that way. The couples that really strove for to be governed by gender assumptions as little as possible, reported generally being happier in the sense that they were less in conflict about, you know, who did what, that kind mm-hmm. of thing. They just worked it out based on their particular individual, you know, preferences. Mm-hmm. They had one problem. Guess what the problem was? Sex. Yeah. They would report their sex lives were meh. You know, they just weren't there.
All of them, or
maybe I told you this story. I don't remember if I've told you this before, but that's a great. You know, all of them? No, not all of them, because there was a subset that would, and I remember reading about it. Whoever wrote this up in some article was saying they would sheepishly report to the researchers, well, actually, we really do have a great sex life because we play power games in bed. They'll play kind of like, you know, it doesn't have to be like full-fledged dominant submission type things mm-hmm. or bondage or things like that, but they would play games where there would be a clear power difference. And what was interesting was the researchers, you know, kind of incorporated all this, and they sort of found a sweet spot in the data. Mm-hmm. They said what they found was the couples that seemed to be happiest across the board, including their sex life, it wasn't 100-0 split in terms of, you know, masculine, feminine, mm-hmm. and it wasn't 50-50 either. It was 60-40.
Which way?
And what both ways. In other words, what they found was, and I think they described it in this way, the man earned 60% of the money, mm-hmm. and the woman did 60% of the traditionally feminine chores. Which meant the man did 40% of the traditionally feminine chores. You know what I mean? Right. It wasn't rigid,
right.
But there was a definite tendency. What they said was, among heterosexual men and women, the women wanted the men to seem like men. Mm-hmm. They wanted to see that those suggestions of masculinity. They didn't want them to be, you know, toxic masculinity. They didn't want them to be, you know, but they wanted them to seem like men. And of course the men wanted the women to seem like women.
Right. You
know, they're looking for those signs because that's what heterosexuality implies. You're mm-hmm. looking for the difference there. And it's interesting, and of course in the case of cross-dressing, obviously the problem that lots of women have with it, the reason it's about tolerating it if they are heterosexual women is, these are women who, even if they were interested in having sex with a woman,
right.
I'm speculating they would actually want it to be a woman.
Right.
They wouldn't want it to be a man dressed up like a woman.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, no, if you're going to do the woman thing, I can do that. I can be turned on by that, but it's got to be a woman.